Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. All right, folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. I guess I keep saying this at these things, at the intros of these things. I get connected with people in some of the most awesome ways these days. Since I went out on my own, I get all sorts of people trying to connect me with, I think it's with just people that I would vibe well and have good intuition with. So the fine folks at FEMA, I believe her name was Gina Clark. I will give Gina some props here. Hooked me up with Tracey Widmeyer with Gripp. So welcome aboard, Tracey. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, good. Like I said, I think it was we talked, it was our haircuts that
Yeah.
was the initial. Yeah, there it is. There it is. That was the initial. Every time I see a bald guy, I'm like, all right, we're gonna find a way to have a good conversation here. So, but I think I was more fascinated by what you guys have been doing. Gina hooked us up because you had just won an award with the Farm Bureau Ag Innovation. Talk about that. I'm probably getting it wrong, but go ahead.
Yeah, so every year the Farm Bureau Federation, so they sort of membership organization across all 50 states, they put together a technology innovation challenge. The purse is $100,000 for the winner, but it's a pretty exhaustive program. So I think June through like August or September, they take applications. You got to do a video pitch about how you're changing ag. There's like 3 or 4 different criteria, and they whittle that down to the top 10 who end up pitching a panel of judges across the industry. So I think we had, Farm Credit, a few people from John Deere, just industry experts sort
Nice.
of evaluate these 10 companies. And then the top 4 invited to their annual show this year was in San Antonio to pitch on stage in front of a live audience. So you got the top 4. It's 3 minutes, no slides. So you really have to think about resonating with your customers. And then again, it's a different set of judges, and they live stream it, and then they pitch, or they judge you and then announce you the next day on front of the entire audience with the president of the AFBF. So it was good for us. I mean, there's a lot of hardware companies in ag. There's a lot of, the usual suspects, I call them, which is like biologicals, soil testing, machinery. There were very few sort of software companies like us, which kind of was a blessing and a curse. But we didn't really have a lot of props to share in terms of what we do, but we made the best of it. So it was a great experience.
That's a lot of pressure, man. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
a lot of different pressures too. Like you got to get through stages, and it's kind of like auditioning for, Shark Tank or something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
They hook you up with mentors. It's just, we got a lot of good feedback. I think the day before we had met a couple of new mentors at the show, and they're like, "Oh, you got to do this, that, and the other." And I was like, too late to change. I
Right.
got it down. I'm not like
Right. We are who we
going with
are.
this, or that's it. I'm going to take
Yeah.
my chances. And then when I got on stage to pitch, it's 3 minutes again, and it was like one of the first times where I'm halfway through the pitch, and my mind goes dark,
Oh
and
no.
I'm like, where am I? And I start repeating myself,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm like, okay, put your head down. I step back. I kind of got back into it and finished it, and it still worked out fine. But it was just such this odd, because you're in front of like hundreds of people looking at you for the next word. It was anxiety inducing.
Well, and people don't. I just started doing, and we'll get to what your company's all about here. I apologize. We're 5 minutes in. We haven't even talked about it, but public speaking's for real, man. It's a real fear. And if you're not prepared, if you're not ready for it, it's freaking scary.
Yep.
It's like, oh man, I forgot this. I don't know what the hell I'm going to say. I'm doing this. I kind of feel like it sometimes on this podcast, 'cause when I start thinking about, well, who's all listening? Then I'm like, all right, forget it. It's me and you talking. That's
Right.
it. So give us, give us the 3 minute pitch that you said at that presentation. Fire away.
Yeah. So I think that the premise that we're trying to showcase with Grip is basically broad-based record keeping for farmers, which, everyone's like, well, record keeping, is that accounting? What are you doing? And really what we do is we put these QR codes on basically anything that a farmer wants to track. Traditionally there's lots of apps there for, the tractors or fleet for the semis or the pickup trucks. But if you know farming, there's tons of things that you rely on for your success, daily, weekly, monthly. Could be fixed equipment like a motor, a center pivot, a facility, a grain bin, cherry trees, all sorts of stuff. And traditionally farmers are like, well, I could bring in an app for each one of those, like JD apps for the green stuff. I could bring in a fleet tracking for the semis. I could do irrigation. All of a sudden, I got to bring in 4 or 5 apps. And guess what? It's the same person on my operation using all those things. So I'm going to ask this poor soul to learn 4 or 5 different applications and know which one to use. Not going to do it. So I'm just going to stay
No.
on paper and spreadsheets. So
Yeah.
like on the Farm Bureau stage, our props weren't like a piece of machinery or a dairy device or anything like that. It was basically like a whiteboard, a paper book, a clipboard, pen and paper, that type of thing. Be like, do you know what these are? Do you resonate with them? The audience shaking their hand or their head. And that's basically what we're trying to, to replace is ease of use, accessibility, dead simple, so anybody can use it without training. That's our mission.
Dead simple. I'm such a proponent of dead simple anymore because we're trying to fill things up with chaos and confusion like freaking crazy right now. And I go back, I say this a lot, but it's the old Vince Lombardi line. It's like, gentlemen, this is a football. It's that simple. Let's just get back to the basics here and try to make it as simple on the customer as we can. So, you eventually created this because you found a problem with the chaos and you were like, we got to find something simpler for these guys. So talk about the idea, how it was created, your story, all that.
Yeah, definitely. So Grip rolled out of an incubation process that Purdue University has. They actually formed a venture studio called Dial Labs. It's like digital innovation in agri-food laboratory systems, a long acronym. But basically, they bring folks in 2, 3 times a year. They walk operations. They meet people across the Purdue network, across the country, to look at the areas of ag that are underserved. And so when Grip, I wasn't part of the incubation process, but when Grip escaped that process, the mandate was basically agricultural maintenance is underserved, right? So it's a very broad topic. And then the LPs, which are, their investors, basically said, somebody's got to solve this. Here's $1 million of seed money. Bring a team in to go solve it. My background is, venture capital, technology startups. I grew up as a software engineer, but I also own a ton of equipment. I grew up on a farm. I own a couple of backhoes, dump trucks, tractors, petty bones, log mills, you name it. And so when I got approached, I was like, I know the problem here. My classic example is I could pull the back door open on my 236 B2 skid loader and see, notes in Sharpie written in that back that I can barely read now. And
Right.
so I know the problem here,
Right.
and so when we started the company, I formed a team. I brought people in I've worked before, and we immediately went out to talk to a bunch of farmers. And there's like 3 or 4 things that resonated. One is I don't want to bring in, a bunch of different apps to track my operation. I have more than just the stuff on tires. So it's got to be broad based.
Yep.
When I talk about what I did, where something is, who can operate it, what I'm supposed to remember to do in a few months, it's all text and WhatsApp. If, Joe joins my operation and leaves a year later, Joe takes that information with him. I can't access it. If I do, I have to infinite scroll. It's not searchable. Like it's a pain in the butt. And then, hey, can you replace the paper track? Sometimes we have regulatory issues with chemical logging. We have food safety. We have OSHA inspections, DOT. Those are all paper forms because there's specific questions that are being asked. And so if you could replicate that, I would be very interested in that. And so we took all those things together and said, we're going to combine what would traditionally be a bunch of different things that folks would use. So text messaging or communication plus asset tracking plus electronic forms. Let's put that all in one easy to use place and focus on operator friendliness. Because if you can't get your people that you're paying to use your stuff, to log information against it, you're not, could be the prettiest dashboard. You're just not going to get them to, no data input is very little usefulness.
Well, and we all do it. We all have a piece of equipment or, even my truck, I'll write something down on a Sharpie somewhere inside the truck to help me remember, okay, I did this, this, and this on this date, on this year. And it's simple stuff, but then to your point, it rains, it weathers, there's snow on it, that's gone. And then you got to go back to the manual and figure out what the heck it is. And you're like, was it in 2023 that I did this, or was that
Yeah.
2024? And you know, this the one thing that you do have that's different is you have an actual piece. You have that little sticker that you show
Yeah.
that goes on there, you scan it, and it gets you into the software. You're
Yeah.
in at that point in time. And so we're all used to doing these things. It's just a matter of making it, now it's all on one little level, one label, scan it, and away you go.
Yeah.
So what's your customer? Who is your customer? Who's your target for this?
Yeah, so we've originally focused on selling to the top 5% of farms. They're the ones that are, they're doing 80% of the 85% of the take.
Okay.
But we noticed that the problem really exists across, every farm that we've been on. Like very little, or very few times are we seeing any sort of industrial software being used. And so we sell directly to the top 5%, but really everybody else, because they all run in the same circles. There's plans available for hobby farmers, 1 or 2 man shops, all that sort of stuff. What we've noticed is really anybody who's got sort of an owner operator situation, small to medium size. I call them blue collar businesses, but it's we're starting to get like septic pumping and manufacturing and fabricating and construction. And we don't actively sell, but they hear about it, or these diversified farms will have a crushing business on the side. And so they undoubtedly sign up because you're not big enough to hire one person to buy the expensive software to sit in a cube and push work orders around. You need something that's, I don't have to train my guys on. Everybody knows how to scan. Everybody knows basically how to interact with like a Facebook profile, which is kind of what it looks like for your piece of equipment. And so slowly but surely we'll get outside of ag, but ag is sort of the real proving ground, because there's nothing, it's all greenfield opportunity for us. There's nothing out there for it.
Yeah, yeah. So you get a QR code, you scan it. Walk us through kind of the steps on how it works, and explain the simplicity of it all.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing is getting people set up. So, traditionally, and you probably have seen this before, you buy software and it's a 6 to 9 month setup process. Like, you got to gather all your data. You have,
Right.
20 different training thing. Like,
Yeah.
we said, why don't we do the opposite of that? Why don't we get you set up and you're ready to go in a matter of hours or really minutes? And so the first step is putting these QR codes on your equipment. You basically put it in the cab of a tractor, the tongue of an implement, the door jamb of a semi, whatever it is. We have zip tied ones you can hang from a center pivot or whatever it is. You scan that, give your asset a name, take a hero picture if you want, and that's it. It's ready to go for your team to scan. You can, of course, add more information. A lot of guys are adding, pictures of the VIN plate, the data plate, the pin
Sure.
plates, manuals, tire sizes, parts lists, all that sort of stuff. It can accept as much information as you want or as little as you want.
But it gives you that flexibility to be able to add in,
Yeah,
the sort of the sky is the limit. I can
yeah,
add in whatever. If you're a super detailed guy or gal, you can say, I'm going to throw all these things in there. If not, it's kind of
right.
it's however you want to utilize it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We heard that a lot from farmers. They're like, A, don't ask me how many things do I own, because I don't know. Like, that gives me
right,
anxiety right off the bat. And B,
right,
don't ask to go get all the history for it, because it's up here. It's in a
right.
paper book that's 40 miles away. That's probably 3 years old.
Sure.
And we see it's, hey, let's just build this from scratch on the fly and go from there. And that's resonated quite a bit. So we get, guys with 100+ assets set up in, a couple of weeks with, 20, 30 employees. They're already off and running.
Yeah.
And so that's the first step, is getting those assets in the system. And then, that orange tag becomes sort of the window into information recall. And people start to recognize, hey, if there's a grip tag on it, that's my accessibility to log information. Maybe it's a squeaky bearing, a leaky seal, the tire's running a little flat.
Right.
Or if I've got my OSHA inspection for a forklift or whatever it is, scan it, run the shortcut, fill out a few pieces of information, put my phone away, and carry on your merry way. So
Yeah.
we don't require people to have the app to contribute information. Anybody can scan it and add information there. And then once those things get into the system, now you have kind of the SMS, WhatsApp functionality around that. So the hierarchy for us is like every piece of equipment has activities like an inspection, a breakdown, a preventative service. each one of those is like a threaded conversation that you can have with your team. Hey, I need more information, or where did you put those parts, or who do I have to call to get this fixed? That type of stuff. So it looks a lot like in like Facebook with WhatsApp, which I don't have to train people on. They just get it,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
beauty.
We're all used to that interface. It's simple, and you said earlier, sometimes some of these softwares can take 6 to 9 months just to get the data into the actual application or whatever it is, whatever kind of software you're using, and Grip can take that 6 to 9 month time frame and make it 2 to 3 hours. Is that dependent a lot on the user entering some of that information, or is that already done on the backside of things? Do you understand
It
that?
requires them to basically tag their equipment,
Uh-huh.
and invite their team in the background throughout this setup period, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or what, however long they want to take. Sometimes if they're in the middle of planting or harvesting it, we'd say, okay, let's pause now, wait till you got all the grain in the bins, and then we'll circle back. But we do some support on the back end there to adjust some of the paper forms they might be looking at for electronic purposes, or we'll send out little YouTube videos on how to add alerts or how to train or whatever it is. Our setup, so let's say somebody comes to our site, they put their credit card in, they pick a tier, we ship them QR codes, we give them a 15-minute video, and they're off and running. Inviting people is a QR code in the app that their workers scan, they fill out their profile, they're in the system, right? So it's low friction for getting people in and getting assets onboarded.
And I'm guessing that's done on purpose because you've probably seen so many of these systems in the past. Maybe you even worked on some where it's like, it's a great idea. This is going to work, but the upfront, the lift to get people integrated, get them using this is we're running into a roadblock. I mean, I've seen it when companies switch over ERP systems, for instance. It's they might go to a great ERP system. Well, actually, I've never heard of a company say they like their ERP system, no matter who it is. I'm not ripping on any of them. But you know what I mean? It's like you got to do all this data dumping. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I was so used to my old steps and I got to do what to get
Right.
all I want to do is make a PO. That's all I want to do.
Yep.
It was simple before. And so you run into these roadblocks. So I'm guessing the long question there is you probably got a ton of experience in what didn't go right
Yeah.
to be able to realize, let's make this thing simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of not even sure. I sort of equate it to like if you're not really listening to your customers, you get this mindset when you're building software, like it's it's got to be perfect. I got to have perfect data because that allows me to do X, Y, Z. And you
Right.
focus on X, Y, Z features that rely on perfect data. Well, if you don't have perfect data, those features fall. So then you have to push perfect data. I
Right,
need it
right, right.
because then you can't do this.
Right.
And so you get in that situation, and it very frequently, when we started walking farms and we started the company, we heard that over and over again. Like, hey, show me what do you have for maintenance records? Like one onion grower in Colorado is like, well, it's the book over there. We go to the book. This was 2023. The last entry in the book was 2018. So he's like, I guess the team's not using it, right? And so, like, okay, we can't rely on that. Even though we imported that information, it's useless, right? It's 5, 6, 7 years old. So we just heard that over and over again. We had a hop producer that we work with was implementing a computerized maintenance management system, a CMS system, and they had started that like a month or two before we got there. We were working with their team to capture like inventory for PPE, their migrant H2A housing, a
Uh-huh.
bunch of other things that this maintenance system wasn't used to. We got up and running within like a month. Everybody's using the grip tags, and they're still 6, 7 months later implementing this system. And pretty soon the maintenance guys are like, hey, I had to go to that H2A housing to log a filter replacement, and I just scanned the code. Can we just put these on the forklifts and stuff and not
Nice.
use this other system? But they had already paid for it, and there was this sort of sunk cost fallacy.
Of
And
course.
so, eventually maybe we overrun that system, but you just see that over and over again.
Yeah, and almost every software company that you talk to, they always the end result is always, "We wanna make your life easier,"
Yep.
that's the goal. The problem is sometimes, to your point, the data has to be perfect, so you end up kinda blaming your customer for not making their lives easier, and you sort of reversed engineered that. It's like, "No, no, no, we're gonna make this thing we're gonna make this thing we're actually gonna make it easy, and we're not gonna rely heavily on the customer to make it easy. We're gonna make it easy ourselves so it is
Right.
easy on them, you know, and
Yep.
yeah, that's a huge, huge advantage, especially in agriculture.
Yeah.
Nobody has time for, the chaos.
I'm in Iowa this week, and I was visiting with a large dairy on Monday afternoon. And I had already shipped his little Grip welcome kit with stickers. And I walk into his office. He's got the stickers on his table. He's like, okay, size, like, let's hear it. Let's do it, almost begrudgingly. And I walk him through. I get him invited. We tag his first loader. He's like, that's it? Wow,
Yep.
that's simple.
Right.
And then we walked him through the web portal where he can do a little bit more advanced features. Like, oh, I can invite people. I can pull reports out very simply in spreadsheets because that's what I live in. I'm like, yeah, all day. He's like, wow, this has to be the model for ag going forward. He's like, I see a ton of different apps. They're too complex. They get low usage. I can't have my team do it, let alone the Spanish speakers. We're automatically translating. He's like, it's a black hole. And so we hear just those stories over and over again. And, when we stop hearing them, we know we've probably ventured too far off the reservation.
Yeah, that's a good call. And to your point too, there's a lot on the farms now, especially some of the help that has been there for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're all gonna be leaving soon, and they all got this information stuck up in their head, and it's really hard to pry that information from some people. It's
Yep.
almost like they feel like they own it, and that's step 1, but step 2 is it they can't retain it all. It's just sort of second nature, you know? It's like muscle memory for all of us. Like, I was trying to get my kids up on the wakeboard the other day, and I'm like, I don't know how to first of all, I don't know how to do it either, but once they got up, I'm like, "You can do it." It's just
Yeah.
in your memory, and similar sort of analogy. It's like they don't it's hard to get that information out of these guys' heads.
Yeah. What ends up happening over and over again is a farmer will hire somebody. Day one through day three is trying to cobble together some sort of training. Maybe it's a piece of equipment that starts hard, or identifying the 15 grease zerks on a combine to go over. Well, guess what? They're not greasing that day. They're greasing in 2 weeks. So now they got to remember all this stuff in the first 72 hours of the job. And when they get 2 weeks out, they're like, I don't remember what happened. And so, what we're doing with this dairy operation is he's like, I'm just going to record a bunch of videos, selfie style, that I walk around, show the 15 grease zerks, how to change the belt out on the motor, the sanitation routine in the rotary parlor. And now when somebody's going to do it in 2, 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is, scan the code, watch the video, they're right there.
Yeah.
And so it's like that concept of what you mentioned, the tribal knowledge, that it's gone, it's lost in a lot of times, and people, they're worried about it for sure.
Yeah. I don't know how this pisses me off so much when because everybody utilizes YouTube now for everything, you know. Something my this mouse that I'm using breaks. And then you go, okay, I gotta type in Logi mouse, and you can find every other mouse, but you can't find the one that broke on you. And it's like, damn it. I wish it's close, but it's not the same. So in this situation, it's like it's all there in one piece, and videos are how people learn today. So I love that idea of just running around, whatever, and here's how you do X, Y, and Z. It's all in one spot, and it's so simple, man. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Even like some of our customers just put the YouTube link in there just to like recall the YouTube for the cost, 390 or whatever it is. Like, it's all right there.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about you and your team, and I mean, you gave us a little bit of a background. I mean, that's the one unique thing about you as well. Yeah, you're a software guy, but you're also you know what it's like to be on a farm. You know what it's like to have equipment. So you kind of got this double experience. But what about you, your team, that kind of thing as you're entering this whole, agricultural ecosystem, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. So the first guy that I hired, my co-founder, really is a guy up in Bellevue, Washington. So he's worked for me before. My last startup, we were basically doing 3D market research testing for large brands. You essentially created a video game in a Walmart or a Hy-Vee or a Costco that large brands could test, shelf heights, promotion, pricing displays. Well, I was CTO of that company, and he was my product guy. So we hit it off. He worked for me. That we raised a ton of capital at that company and kind of lost it all. We had a lot of shiny objects. headsets and VR and AR, all the stuff that's still, we're still too early on. So he left when I left, and he went to go build a little med tech company out of Germany. So it was like a little patch that you put on your shoulder, reads your blood, and then they send you, vitamins to boost, whatever deficiencies you have. Well, that ended up getting purchased by Nature's Wave,
Mhm.
and so he was
The
right.
supplement company? Is that what
Yeah.
that is? Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yep. And so he was working off his, sort of golden handcuffs at that point, right when I was rolling off a company that I was working for that got acquired in private equity. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing now?" He's like, "Well, next week I'm looking for something to do." And so, we started Grip together. But the unique thing about him, in addition to being a, great product mind, is he owns a residential construction company in New Mexico. So he's got a partner down there. They're building residential homes. And he's like, this isn't an ag problem. This is a universal problem for
Yeah.
owner operators. He's like, we have contractors come in, they use our equipment. I don't know where it is. When was the last time it was maintained? I got a paint sprayer where the nozzles are clogged because they're allowed to dry, like all sorts of stuff. He's like, I get this problem firsthand. And so it's been refreshing to have, two guys that get along well, that understand technology and software, that also understand the problem. So he does all of our, tree fruit customers up in the Pacific Northwest. It's just been a great journey there. And then you've got some developers around the country. We're sort of an all remote company at this point. So we got a handful, call 4 or 5 developers building the platform with us, and a bunch of fractional sort of marketing help, accounting help, that type of thing.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and the scalability of this, I mean, you're right. It starting an ag is a good starting point, but you can just see this because maintenance is one of those things that is so important everywhere you go, but it's so ignored and forgotten. And to your point with the story of the guy that was just trained about where the 15 nozzles were on the tractor, and then 2 weeks from now he's got to remember where all those are at. It's like that happens everywhere in every factory in the US. And maintenance is one of these things everybody's trying to kind of pump up and make simpler, and I think this is just a huge, I mean, the scalability of this, you can see it going all sorts of different places.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've really tried to wrap the business model for Grip around this concept of becoming self-sustainable so we can get into those other markets. So, like, the last company I started, we raised 70 million. We hired a ton of people ahead of the curve. And, we had a decent lifestyle business, but could never get a return on capital. And
Mhm.
for Grip, we're taking a different approach. Like, we're trying to keep prices low. We're trying to do a scale play because we know this affects every farm plus all these other industries, but it can't be expensive. It can't be complex. And so if we wrap our burn rate and our staffing model around low cost scale and live into that, we've got the opportunity there to be reasonably priced, to solve this for, a lot of different people, and
Yeah.
still be a sustainable company.
How do you raise $70 million? What's that like?
That's crazy. Yeah, I think we were on our Series F.
Okay.
So, ABC, the difficult part there is I'd say the first million and a half to 2 million was friends and family, out of my
Okay.
network and the two other founders. And it was a painful day when we recapped the company. We basically, I think we did like a 150-to-1 reverse stock split. So, my founding equity was worth, I'll always tell people it's like a bag of peanuts and a six pack. And, thank you for your 12 years of service type of thing.
Yeah.
And that was difficult.
Yep.
Um, and so many different lessons. I went from that company into private equity for a bit, which is kind of the opposite end of it. I call it like, lipstick on a pig. You're just trying to dress the company up just enough to sell it to somebody else.
Right.
And I'm such a builder at heart, and it was, I was looking for something to get in, but when you got to go out and sell yourself, to raise $20 million to live into some sales projection in a market that you probably didn't validate enough to know you could get there.
Right.
That's difficult.
I
It's very
bet.
difficult.
It's one thing raising the money, it's another thing actually living up to the expectations. Because 'cause you're right, you're putting this forecast out there that you put some thought, some serious thought into, but it's still a forecast. It's
Yeah.
still a future thing that may or may not happen. And so then the reality hits like, "Uh-oh, I got this money. Now we better go deliver on something," right? That's probably where the real pressure comes in.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many lessons learned. You probably have seen some of these where it's like we did a top down forecast. So it's like if we hire every sales guy has a quota of 400,000. If we hire 10 sales guys, that's 4 million,
Yep.
and we're done. We just got to
Yeah.
hire these guys. And then you hire them and they don't work out. The
Yeah.
market isn't ready. Like all these things break
Yeah.
down. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so
All of a
it's
sudden COVID hits and you're like,
right.
"Oh, well, wonderful. I didn't know that was coming." Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's yeah, that's a whole different level of versus somebody just saying, "Hey, I got this really cool idea and I'm gonna start it in my garage." And that's a lot of folks in this audience are the ag equipment kind of guys that started in their backyard. They listened to they were a farmer and they were like, "I something's not working. I got to make something better." And it's taken off to be Kinsey Manufacturing or, Landau Corporation or really, I mean, that's the John Deere story in a nutshell. Uh, so yeah, man, it's a whole different level of playing field when you're
Yeah.
when you're raising money and trying to deliver results and then coming up with ideas
Yep.
and these are the types of things where you got to kind of ultimately you got to have a purpose in your life. And the purpose is, you want to try to help an industry that you feel needs help that you understand at this point in time. It'd be one thing if you were working in the ice cream industry or whatever it is, you get this thing. This is part of who you are as a person anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I feel sort of genuinely drawn to it. I've seen the struggles growing up. I've seen a lot of family farms kind of go under. Our sort of broad mission, in addition to just helping ease the lives of farmers, is really to help them survive, these next few years, decades, whatever it is. I mean, I was on a customer's farm this morning, plenty of rain in Iowa. He's like, we're gonna have a bumper crop. Sounds good, but maybe that's 385 corn next year. He's like, that would devastate everybody. And so you think about, places where you can help magnify the operational burden on a farm. We're just a small part of that, tracking things that you own, keeping them, maintained, maybe getting 4 or 5 more years out of it, keeping the resale values high. But there's also things like, how do you manage your staff? How do you incent your staff? And how do you run your books? Some of these things that like corporate America has solved, just not in a way that ag can adopt them. How do we help professionalize those types of things and just be a part of that future that we can all be excited about?
Yeah, and really, how do you inspire people? It's one of those things that I'm in the middle of writing this book right now, and I've never written a book before, but I was catching myself on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. My wife and I are flipping through our phones, something stupid, and I'm like, "Wow, this is so non-productive. I want to do something productive." So I just started writing, and it's been great. And I come across all these stories, doing a little bit of research, and one of them that stuck out to me was Elon when I think they were building the Model 3 at Tesla, and he's sleeping on the production floor. They're damn near bankrupt. This company is a joke at this point in time, and he's sleeping on the production floor. He knows every nut and bolt. He
Yep.
knows everything about it, and he's doing that not so much because he has to, but I think he just wanted to kind of inspire his employees and let them know that, "Hey, I'm committed to this. This is gonna work." Their failure, like, is not an option, and I kinda see that with you. Just you're traveling around in Iowa, you're out and about doing
Right.
doing what you need to do versus sitting around going, "Well, I hope this thing, I hope we get this figured out." It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
man, that's inspiring to people, and
Yeah.
that's contagious as all heck.
Yeah, I was telling you before we started, like I've done about 3,000 miles here in the last seven
Right,
years, and I've probably visited 15 to 20 farmers and customers. And when you get to experience like rural America and understand the lifestyles and the trials and tribulations of these small towns and what farmers are dealing with on a daily basis, like it totally changes the way you approach the work and what you're trying to do to solve the problems for them. Like getting your hands dirty, understanding that, just having a conversation, breaking bread with them is so important. But if you weren't doing that, it wouldn't work in most cases. And I think people have tried to do that for a long time in ag, which is why Purdue's mission of underserved things in ag, somebody's got to fix them, right? It's by
right.
doing these types of things that they're allowed to be done.
And I think sometimes the problem is the somebody's like, "Well, this is the I here's this'll fix it. This'll fix everything." But
Yeah.
if you don't go out there and actually listen to the customer and get that real feedback where you're like, "Yeah, I like the idea, but I'm never gonna take the time to,
Yeah.
I don't have the time. I'm starving here. We're trying to figure out how to deal with 385 corn and,
Right.
it's crazy. Like, it's chaotic. We don't know what the hell to do here." So, I love your idea, but I can't do anything about it right now, and to your point, man, you're out there and
Yep.
listening to these folks and saying, "I get it. I
Yeah.
understand the struggles. It's not easy, and we're here to help you, instead of you here to help us by,
Right.
taking
Yeah.
this on."
So many times we hear from our customers, like somebody comes onto the farm and says you need to run your farm like this so that my software can make you successful. And they're like, have you ever sat on a tractor? Have you ever planted, or harvested or changed the oil on anything? And the
Yeah.
guy's like, no. And it's like, you just can't do it, And I think listening to those stories over and over helps ground you in the solution you're providing.
Yeah, it's exactly right. That's not gonna work. If you never sat in the seat, it's really tough to have these conversations. And you're right, the relationship is still with a lot of talk about AI taking over everything. Soon enough, they're gonna clean our houses, walk our dog, grocery shop, whatever, and then they're gonna start shooting us. Whatever the case may be. But I think part of it is, you know, if we can really let AI do some of those jobs that are sort of mundane and they can take on, it will ultimately create more time for the relationship aspect of our lives, what I think a lot of us are just sort of missing or
Right.
scared of for some reason. And yeah, you're right, man. The relationships definitely matter in this industry, but I think in all industries
Yeah.
anymore. It's not going away. So
Right. Definitely.
that's clearly a part of your mission as well with your company and your leadership. But yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the relationships that we're trying to cultivate on the platform span, we're starting to span outside of just growers and farmers. And again, it started by us walking these operations and these farmers or apple packers or whoever it is saying, look, I've got a relationship with my mechanical engineer or my third party mechanic or irrigation specialist. I rely on them for critical information, but they don't work for me directly. It's a contract or a point in time. Can they start to leverage that information and bring it into my Grip instance so I have access to that?
Yeah.
And so we've been modifying the platform just to help those relationships because again they look a lot like texting or phone calls. So you reach somebody, it's always the wrong person, and that sort of spanned into this concept we're running with now, which is can we release the burden on OEM manufacturers who are selling and supporting directly to have them foster a relationship with the farmer or the equipment owner directly and sort of preserve that in time versus the way it's been done for again text, WhatsApp, phone calls, personal email. So that's been something that's been interesting. We're not quite ready. It's gonna be launching here later this month, but just seeing that the sort of the sigh of relief off of the faces of these equipment owners or the OEM manufacturer being like, oh my God, you mean I don't have to like filter through all my text messages to try to find Joe who bought a machine 2 years ago that needs a recall? And
Yeah.
we're like, no, everything's gonna be right in front of you. And so it's been that kind of that need to foster this ecosystem in ag that has really been interesting for us to watch transpire.
Well, right, and ultimately, it's listening to the customer. I mean, the OEM that adapts something like this will have the most simplified piece of equipment that just makes it easier for a customer to really focus on a grower to really focus on, the important stuff on their farm, and
Yeah,
and they can simplify this and just 10x the speed. So
yeah,
yeah, man, it's definitely a scalable piece of software. It's a scalable business that I see can just go into so many different channels. It's a really cool and interesting story. I know my audience is gonna love it as well. Hopefully you'll get some calls after this for
yeah,
sure. But
definitely.
um why Grip again? You told me, but I can't remember.
Yeah, so Grip came out of the Purdue's incubation process. Basically, like get a grip on your operation. I
Yeah.
like to say get a grip on your shit, but people like
Yeah.
get a grip on whatever your operation is doing. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And your backstory, your home is north of Milwaukee. Your
Yep. North of Milwaukee, I grew up on a farm. We did, about 150 chickens a year. We butchered them by hand for the community. We did some row
Nice.
crops as well. We had sheep for a short period of time, and then my father's land joined my grandpa's, who did dairy, some dairy cattle. So, and then my dad sort of farmed us out to the neighbors for farmhand help and
Yeah.
all that picking rocks,
Right.
all the
All the
stories.
jobs. Yeah,
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 exactly. Nice.
yep.
Nice. And now you spend most of your time you're traveling around. You said you spent, whatever, 2, 3,000 miles in the last couple of weeks just
Yeah.
hitting it hard, man, and
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
customers, listening to their feedback, that kinda thing?
Yeah, yeah, we have a good base of early customers. We are a member of Egg Launch, which is sort of a farm trial network across the Midwest and Mid South. And so I like to get to those early customers, once a year, twice a year, as I'm making trips, around the Midwest here, just to shake their hand, learn how it's going, buying dinner, whatever it is. So I don't want to lose that spirit because so many of the things that we've built and the whole relationship we have with our customers come through those interactions that are so important for us. We try to get every employee that we hire out into the fields, a couple times a year to just experience things firsthand. It just helps design or engineering or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then organizations you're involved in, I know we met through FEMA, you said you're an EMDA member,
Yeah.
Ag Launch, talk about the importance of joining those, and, like, I call it the ecosystem
Yeah.
of sort of agriculture, and is that your thought process there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we meet so many interesting folks there. And then there's also opportunities for Grip because, if I was selling 15 to 25 to $100,000 software, like I could sell direct in many cases because our
Uh-huh.
costs, like our average price for the farmers, like $1,000 or $2,000 a year, right? So I can't walk every farm and be profitable, and so I have to look at organizations that can help magnify our reach and our distribution to bring awareness to people. I always have said it's not if they buy Grip, it's a when, and so I just
Right.
need to be there, meet them where they are, whether it's a association, an organization, that's coaching farmers, a co-op, a retailer, whatever it is. We want to be in all those spaces. So when the time comes and they're frustrated enough to look for a solution, we're the ones that they think of.
Yeah, yeah, and those are the types of organizations that, you never know what kinda conversations or who you can meet and how you can network and how you can kind of just get your product to market quicker, and that's sort of what everybody's looking to do these days is just try to, expedite the speed of which a go-to-market strategy, looks like, so,
Yep.
yeah, you're hitting all the right spots, man, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think our sales process is simple enough in that we're confident based on what we've seen so far that other people could carry that mantle versus like if you're selling a more complex piece of software, that distribution mechanism comes with a lot of training and hand holding and all the things that could help it fail. We've seen some positive indicators that we don't have to go bear that burden, and so we're super excited about partnering with a lot of different folks.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, hopefully just being on here will help as much as possible, and, we'll just kinda kick this thing off and see where it goes. But yeah,
Yep.
Grip is definitely a company to watch, everybody. These guys, I mean, you could just tell from talking to you, Tracy. You got your stuff together. You're a super intelligent guy, and I think one of the most important things that I like is the like the whole Elon story. You're inspiring. You're getting out there and you're doing things, and you're getting your hands dirty, as they like to say. So
Yep.
that's contagious. That goes a long ways. So congrats on all your success, man. It's impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
What do you do to unwind from it all? What's the go-to getaway thing? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've been I'm a bit embarrassed to say I've been building my own house since 2018.
Oh,
So right now I've got ground up. I dug the footings, poured the walls, like raised it. It's a timber frame, metal roof, electrical, plumbing. We had a few contractors and a couple of those things. But where I'm at right now is I bought a log mill, a Norwood sawmill, like a year and a half ago, and I took down some maple on my property, slabbed it, dried it, and now I'm making finished cabinetry for my kitchen and
oh my
my bathroom.
gosh, beautiful,
So
beautiful.
yeah, it's sort of a labor of love. I can't, you know, I don't really watch a lot of TV. I'm not a movie guy. I don't sit like. For me, the outlet is because I'm behind a computer working on Grip a lot of times. Like I just want to work with my hands, and get out there and plane a piece of lumber and build something out of it. So those are most of the things that whether I'm out, doing some logging on my property for DNR purposes or whatever it is. Like I just like to be out there and get greasy and dirty and sweaty and it's or what?
It's scientifically proven, man. It's good for us. It's good
Yeah,
for us to start a project and finish one. And when you're building your own home, there's so many little start and end projects from
Right.
making your own cabinet door to actually seeing the finished piece at the end of it all. And
yep.
that's awesome, man. I love it. Are you gonna are you gonna, have you thought about how you're gonna heat it? Only wood burning, gonna be off the grid entirely here? Or
Yeah, I've got hydronic heat in the floors, but I'm not
what's
my
hydronic heat mean?
so like the PEX tubing
Okay, yeah, I
in the
gotcha.
floor.
I
Yeah,
gotcha.
so I have that going on. I do have a backup furnace, but in the winter I'm typically burning 95%. Unless it gets down to like 10 below, I can heat the whole house based on the central part of this big furnace or this big fire burner I have where I can heat it on wood. So
That's
in fact,
sweet.
I just cut down a few trees a few weekends ago. I got to split them. I have two rotating, wood houses where one can dry while I'm using the other. So I don't know, I'm burning, 2-3 quarters of wood a year to heat the house.
That's
Um,
awesome. You know
yeah,
who Thomas Massey is? You ever heard that
yeah,
name?
yep,
Okay. He's kind of a strange, he's a polarizing figure, but uh, I'm not going to talk about him. But if you're interested in him, those listening, look him up. He's similar. He's off the grid. Is he a senator, or congressman
yep,
from Kentucky? And this dude, whether you're Republican or Democrat, doesn't really matter. I'm not talking politics, but he drives to DC in a van that he hooks up to solar. Uh, he doesn't stay in hotels. He lives in Kentucky completely off the grid. Heats his house like you're talking about.
yep.
Dug a well. He's interesting guy, interesting story. Forget about the politics. If you like him, great. If you don't, great. But yeah, anyway, I figured you might know who he is, but
Yeah, I've
yeah,
got a pickup truck, and I bought this pickup tent that goes in the back with an air mattress. And so occasionally, if I can drive my truck, I get low mileage, gas mileage on it. So I typically rent a car if I'm doing, across the Midwest. But once in a while, I'll take that out, ditch the hotel, and sleep in the back under the stars, and go from there. It's great.
freaking love it, man. Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's why you build simple products, because you
Yeah,
understand the simplicity of life, and what the good Lord has provided us is pretty powerful. So
absolutely.
I love it, Tracy. Well, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Widmeyer with Grip. Hell of a story, man. I'm excited for you guys to get out there and everybody get introduced to you. So thank you so much for coming. I'm grateful for our connection. I look forward to keeping it and seeing how we can carry this in the future. So
Yeah,
very,
definitely
very, very grateful. Thank you for
enjoyed it.
doing
Thanks for
this.
having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Tracy Widmeyer with Grip, everybody. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.